Hi and welcome to PolyOriginals with Fiona Abel-Smith. So today I thought we'd have a fun little go at a project of covering a plant pot. Why not? It's coming up to the summer months and these are such fun to do. This is in response to a question I was asked on the feed of one of my videos recently when someone said, could you cover a flower pot? So in discussing the answer and saying, well, yes, of course you can, I said, well, how about if I do a tutorial? So here we are. So this is what we're going to do today. Cane work wise, very simple, although we are going to do a fun little leaf cane. But this bit's very simple and these bits are very simple. You can make these flower pots as colourful as you like or as plain as you like. A lot of people may like it just without the bit on the top, so just have the bottom, in which case do the whole thing one colour. At the end I'll show you a couple of other samples of things I've done just to show you different colourways and different patterns to do, and I've just done it on a little terracotta pot. Useful both to put plants in as a decorative pot, but also just to have on the table as a tabletop, just a handy little pot to collect things in. So let's go through what we need for today's project. So the tools we need for today's session are pretty standard. Obviously some of them are polymer clay ones, but the others are things you'll find around the house hopefully, or you can certainly make do or find something that will work in the same effect. You do need a pot. This is just an ordinary terracotta pot. Now one of the reasons I chose these is because it's a nice surface that will adhere nicely to the clay. They're also very cheap and they come in a huge range of sizes. This one is actually 3.5 inches or 9 centimetres across the top here, and that's the size of the pot we're going to be doing today. And to start with the pot, before we do anything else, we're going to cover it in a layer of glue. So you need a nice flat-headed paintbrush, does really well, but any paintbrush will do really. Some form of glue, it's a huge bit of glue I've got here, but obviously a small amount of glue will do. You will need some form of baking parchment, grease-proof paper, baking paper, tracing paper, waxed paper, doesn't really matter as long as it's something that you can see through when you've drawn on it. And to draw on it, we need a pencil and a ruler. And now to the clay tools more when we get on to doing that. A tissue blade or polymer clay blade, whatever you normally call yours. A craft knife. Some form of knitting needle. We're just going to use the blunt side of this just to roll over any seams. A roller, we're not using it much, but it's always handy to have one. And then we are going to use, to create texture, some ball tools. These are easily available online. These are ones particularly for moulding and sculpting. These I believe are more for nail art, but either way they are easily available either in shops or online. You're going to need some form of texture sheet. Now when we texture the pot, you could use some of the amazing texture sheets that are available for polymer clay from all the good makers, and they will work absolutely perfectly, so do use those. If you are going to use those, remember to use some form of cornstarch or corn flour to put a layer between your texture sheet and the polymer clay so that when you peel the clay off it doesn't stick to your sheet. However, I'm going really basic. This is a piece of, it's actually not the non-stick stuff you put under a carpet to stop it moving around, and this is from IKEA and it comes on a huge roll, and I just cut off little pieces because it makes really quite a fun texture. So that's what I'm using for my texture today. Cutters. I'm just going to do a couple of little shapes cutters. You can use whatever you've got around. You can also cut shapes by hand if you want to, make yourself a little template. I will put the link, this is from a Makins cutter set, and I will put the link as to which cutter set that is from in the notes below the tutorial. And then similarly we need a couple of small round cutters, and again I will put the details as to where I get these from, or a couple of places where you can get them from online. If you don't have these, a straw works really well. Just use the end of a straw to take little circles. You're going to need some form of tile to work on. This is a big one, just a small one will do, and also a tile to bake on. And when we bake, we're going to tent our whole tile in foil, as in cover the whole piece above and beyond the height of the flower pot in foil, so that if your oven should spike in temperature whilst the clay is curing, it's not going to damage the clay. Other things, as per normal, pasta machine makes life an awful lot easier. Of course, you could just roll your clay by hand and just miss out the bits we're using the pasta machine for, if you don't have one that you can use for clay. And wet wipes. Always useful to have wet wipes. We'll use them in the last stage of the process, but also just to clean your hands and your machines and your tools as you go through the process. So that's it for all the tools we need for today's project. So let's go on to the clay. So the brand of polymer clay I'm using for today's tutorial is actually Sculpey Soufflé. I've chosen this one because it's nice and light, as in light in weight, but also it gives a nice texture, sort of like a suede type finish, which is quite nice to then sort of put extra texture in. I just thought it went particularly well with the flower pots. We have got big pieces, so this is half a pack or 1 ounce of these two colours, and then this is quarter a pack or half an ounce, 14 grams of these, and say that's 28 grams. I'm working in packs for these because souffle, with it being actually slightly lighter in weight, it doesn't actually come in the 2 ounce packs as normal, but if you're using any other brand of clay, that'll be say 1 ounce and half an ounce. So I've got the colours here, so I'll just run through the colours. We've got Lagoon, Turnip, Jade, Robin's Nest, Pistachio, So 80s and Igloo. And I've actually cut these up into the sizes that I would recommend you condition them in, because we're going to do something with those in a minute. And when it comes to conditioning clay, that means sort of reinvigorating it, make sure the plasticizers sort of re-energized and working nicely throughout all the polymer clay. If you're not sure how to condition your clay, I do have a free YouTube tutorial showing you how to do that with some tips and techniques if you're new to conditioning clay. So the Lagoon is going to be used for the background, so that's all going to be in one large piece. The turnip we're going to use part to do the lip of the pot, and part's going to be used for outlines and extra bits of decoration, so I'd suggest that amount should be enough to go round the whole lip of our pot in a thin setting. And these ones, we are going to do a skinner blend with those colours like that, and we are going to do a skinner blend with those colours like that, and then these pieces we're just going to have spare for little bits of extra decoration. So that's why I've separated them out into all of their particular sizes and colours. So first thing to do, condition all of this clay, starting with the lighter colours and then working your way up all the way to the dark ones. And I've done all of mine on setting number 5, which is a medium setting. On my machine, 0 is thick and a 9 is thin. So setting number 5, a nice medium setting, and just got them all into nice thin sheets. And we'll go from there. Before we start decorating or having any other such fun, it's really helpful to make a template of our flower pot so that when we start decorating around the lip, we can see where to place our pieces. So the easiest way to do this is to put your flower pot face down or top down onto a piece of, this is baking parchment, it can be greaseproof paper, tracing paper, just something that you can see through easily, and I'll show why in just a second. With a pencil, just go all the way around. And now, because your piece is clear, you can fold it over and match up the other side of the circle so that you get your fold exactly in half. Repeat the same till you join up in quarters. Again, you can make sure that it matches. And then lastly, we'll go into eighths, and again fold it right from the middle so you've got nice creases all the way out. Now, of course, you could get a protractor and actually draw this out by hand, but we only want something that's roughly showing us where to place pieces. So this, to me, is the quickest and easiest way of doing it. So I'm just going to get a ruler and draw in where those pencil lines will be, and where the spurs will go out all the way across. So there we go, very quick and easy. But now, when we place our piece upside down, when we start putting the design around the lid, we'll know exactly where to place all of our pieces to get them even. And if we were doing anything on the bottom, then again you can actually centre the hole right over the middle, and you'd use these spurs to place pieces around the bottom. So that's a tip I'd give for any designs we want to put around the side. Just a piece of see-through paper, and that gets us started. Right, the next job, we just need to cover the whole of the outside and the bottom with a layer of PVA glue. Now I've got a big bottle of it here, so I'm just going to put my brush in, get quite a lot on, nice load of glue, and then just start painting. And the great thing about terracotta is you can immediately see where you've put the glue. So just work your way around. We want to get a nice even coating all the way around so that our polymer clay will be able to stick easily to the flower pot. Now you could, of course, if you want to, use liquid clay. It's just that we'd be using quite a lot, and seeing as for this PVA glue works just as well, I thought you might as well go for the cheap option. So I'm going all the way around. I'm not actually going over the top of the lid because I want to do the bottom as well. I'm also going to do inside that hole, because for this particular one I am going to cover the whole of the bottom over as well, just to show you how to do that. Now obviously if you're doing this as an actual flower pot, you would still need to have somewhere for the water to run out at the bottom, so you wouldn't cover over that hole. And to be honest, I wouldn't even cover the base. So if you're doing that, just glue up to the sides here. But once that's all done, we can put him to one side. Don't forget to wash your brush straight away. So the colour of clay I'm planning on using to go around the bottom of the pot is this lovely lagoon blue colour. So I'm just putting it through on setting number 5 on my pasta machine. I'm just going to get myself a nice even sheet. Now what I'd like to do, if possible, this is another flower pot the same size that I haven't actually glued whilst I'm waiting for that one to dry. I want to make myself a band of polymer clay that's just the right height to go around this, because I'd like to get it all in one piece if I can. So the way to do that is to fold your polymer clay, and you can fold it again like that, so that now when I put it through the pasta machine, that way down with the folds at the sides, I won't have any trapped air, but I should get myself a nice long sheet that'll be just about the right height to go all the way around my flower pot. Okay, there we go, got a nice long sheet here. So I've got one side that's longer than the other, so the longest side I'm going to put around the top. My pot is still a little bit tacky, which is great, and I'm just going to persuade the clay to sit around my pot. I'm just overlapping ever so slightly on this top lip here. Don't worry too much about what's happening on the bottom, just keep going around with the top lip, just overlapping slightly until you go all the way around. So my piece isn't quite big enough, I'm going to have to patch a little bit, but that's fine. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to start smoothing out. So smooth out where you can, making sure you've got no trapped bubbles, working from this top towards the bottom. If you get a place where that's a fold, that's fine, we'll leave that, we'll come back to that in a moment. Just keep working your way around. There's another fold just there, all the way. Now where it's overlapped here, I'm just going to take my craft knife and cut away the excess. We'll put that bit together. I'm also going to give myself a nice smooth line where I'm going to join a piece, because it's easier to see and easier to cut when you do that. I don't need these pieces to go over the bottom, so just roughly at the moment I'm going to take off any bits that's overlapping the bottom, and then I'm going to chop down the side of my fold, smooth this clay over till you can see where the fold joins, cut down and pull away the excess, and then that'll just join together. Just smush it together with your fingers, persuading one side to join to the other, and we'll come back and neaten that off in a minute. Same again with this one. So cut down one side of where your crease is, pull the excess over so you can see where the overlap is, chop down and pull away the excess. Now I should have enough with these bits, or I might even have enough with that piece there. I'd either put them back through the pasta machine, but I have got enough there. I can actually just patch that piece in there, look. And again, because I cut myself a nice even shape, I can see where that join needs to go. And there we go. So what we're going to do now is we are going to, with the blunt side of a knitting needle, just using the edge here, I'm just going to roll backwards and forwards where these seams are, just to join them over. So I'm not pressing down too hard, just enough to get them to join. If there's a slight gap, just roll from away, starting quite a bit away from it, and roll it together, just joining up there. And I'll quite often just go over with my thumb or finger and just keep working your way around the pot wherever you've got your joins. And of course, if you didn't have a piece that was long enough to go the whole way around, you could just join this as many times as you needed to. It's just that it's easier, obviously, if you get a nice long piece. I'm now going to go around and check and see if there are any bubbles trapped. If you find any, like there's one there, see if you can persuade it to go up and out the bottom. If you can't, we'll come back to that in a minute because there's things we can do. But just keep going around, trying to check if we've got any trapped air. There's another one there, so I'm just forcing him up the top. Let's see if I've got one trapped in the middle somewhere. Then I can show you what to do when that happens. A little one in there. I think there could be a couple of little ones there. So if you've got one trapped in the middle, just with something like your craft knife, just create a hole and then try and persuade any air trapped inside to go out of the hole before you roll over to close the hole up. So when you've got a relatively smooth finish, we're going to texture this, because what's the point of having polymer clay around a flower pot if we're just going to leave a smooth surface? Much more fun to texture. There are so many things you could texture this with. There are texture sheets on the markets, literally hundreds of them, so you can have really good fun. If, however, you don't have any, or you're looking for something that's very simple, then something like this works quite well. And it's quite nice because it's got a little square pattern. So I will use this quite a lot. So just press down and pull away. That gives you a nice square. And I will just do that, working around just a little bit at a time as I go. And it's quite good as well because you can see where you're pressing down because it goes slightly darker as it goes into the clay. And I will just work my way around the pot doing that and bring you back when I'm done. Once you've got a nice amount of texture and you're happy with the way it's going all the way around, we just need to tidy up these bits, these ends of bits. So with your polymer clay blade or tissue blade, however you call it, we're just going to so what I'm doing is I'm letting the blade sit nice and flat against the bottom of the pot and using that to curl around, and that gives us a nice flat finish on the bottom of our pot. Now similarly, I'm going to use the hole here, put my finger down there, and I'm actually going to go around the lip of our top here. Now obviously don't get the blade anywhere near your fingers. You'll see that I'm moving out of the way as I start going around, but again you get a nice, neat, smooth finish by doing that. So I'll just take off the residue here, and then we will bake this according to the manufacturer's instructions for the brand of clay you are using. Okay, off for its first baking. Whilst that bakes, we'll make our first little cane, and this one's going to be the petal cane. This is going to be a Skinner blend, where we're going to do a blend from the pink with white in the middle through to the blue. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because Skinner blends are something that are used an awful lot in polymer clay. But if you are new to it, I do have a video showing you some tips and techniques on how to get yourself a nice Skinner blend. So, as with normal, we're just going to chop through diagonally for the two end pieces, middle piece in half, two end pieces, fold one onto the other, that way, one that way, those two on top because obviously we've got two layers on here, and we're going to put those together. So we've got all blue on this side, and then we're going to merge into the white, into the pink, and end up with all pink on this side. So as per normal, this is through on setting number 5 of my pasta machine, so I'm going to fold in half and go up at least one setting. In actual fact, I think I'm going to probably go up to setting number 3 on mine because it gives me a nice thickness to work on. Always fold first, and then each time you put it through, collect bottom to top, and put back through till we have a nice blend, and I'll bring you back when we're at that stage. So there we are, we've got our nice blend of colours. So I'm going to chop this into 3. I actually ended up on setting number 2 on my machine, which is my 3rd thickest. So I'm going to cut my pieces like that. I'm going to pinch the pink ends together slightly, and I'm going to put it back through the pasta machine on that same setting number 2 to give myself a nice long strip. And now I'm going to need a really long strip. So either go down one setting on your pasta machine, going thinner and thinner and thinner until you get to your thinnest usable setting. Or if, like me, your pasta machine's a good one, then I'm going to go straight down to my thinnest setting, which for me is setting number 9, and give myself a really long thin strip. So here we go, our nice long thin strip. Now today I'm going to have blue as the centre of my petals. So I'm going to roll, starting from the blue end and rolling up to the pink. And all I'm doing when I'm rolling is trying to make sure I've got no trapped air. Rolling it nice and tight until I get the whole thing into one big roll of clay. I'm not too worried about the dirt on the end, that'll all come out. It's a petal, it's a natural thing, it won't matter in the finished piece. So we're going for a very simple petal cane today, so all I'm going to do is chop it down into quarters. If your quarters aren't particularly even, that doesn't matter. As I say, a petal is a natural thing. And then we're just going to pull up the sides here and squidge in the middle. If you want more complex canes, there are loads of wonderful YouTube tutorials out there showing you. I've got one myself, an insert petal cane. Not that I'm saying it's wonderful, but just saying I have got a petal cane out there. So I'm going to just pull up the sides so the pink goes up around the sides slightly, squidge in the bottom, put it together 2 pieces at a time, put those together, and when all 4 pieces are joined on the bottom, then pull over the tops to create a triangular shape. I'm going to make it just a fraction longer. Drop down the middle so we get the pattern revealed, and then I'm just going to put this together once. So I'm putting it together, and we've got a weird sort of roughly diamond shape. So all I'm going to do is my thumb and fingers, I'm going to press inwards to create more of a square shape, turn around the bottom, do the same there. Don't worry, this end looks like a right mess. That's because it always becomes distorted at the end. Carry that on all the way down the shape till we end up with a square shape, and then you can start creating more of a square shape for your petal. When it gets to a certain size that you're happy with, I probably will go a little smaller than this, but just show you for now what effect we're going to go for. I'm just pressing down the sides, and then I will actually roll on the bottom because I want a nice blunt-ended petal. So a nice round shape to the bottom of it, and then when we chop through, you should see our petal shape. So those are the shapes we'll be using to build up the flower. As I say, I'm probably going to go quite a lot smaller to put it on the pot we're doing, but we'll just leave that there for now. And let's go back to the pot that hopefully should be ready and out of the oven by now. So once your piece is out of the oven, we can now add the rim onto this one. And although I put the PVA glue all around the side, I didn't do the top rim, and I want to do that. So I'm just about to put some glue now around the top rim, and then we'll let that go tacky again, and then we'll move on to covering it in a layer of this clay. Now to go around the lip, I don't need my clay to be very wide at all, so I've already conditioned this very well and put it through on setting 5 on my pasta machine, so a thinnish medium setting. And if you then fold it up like that, so all your folds are at the sides, and you make sure it's a piece that's wider than the piece you want to go around, I'm now going to put that through the pasta machine that way on, so any air trapped in the folds will get pushed out to the end, and I should end up with a nice long strip that will go all the way around the outside lip of my flower pot. So there we go. What I'm now going to do is just take my ruler, make it nice and flat on your work surface. I'm going to use these lines here as a guide. Just take off the end bit. So I can see here, use that as a guide and that as a guide, and take myself off a nice straight edge. And I'm going to straighten off this end, because as before, if it turns out to not be wide enough, we can always patch. And now I'm going to lay it on, but lay it on, if if I can, very neatly at this bottom edge so it just marries up to where the blue is. Don't worry about the top edge, just do it so it fits on nice and neatly above the blue, because we don't really want to have to do too much work to the blue edge if we can avoid it. Tiny bit of overlap. I'm not even going to bother with the overlap, I'm going to leave it there. And then with the edge of the knitting needle, just roll over as we did before, just smooth over, and then very gently just press in over that rim that we've just added that extra bit of glue onto. That'll just help it adhere just a little bit. Where the join is at the top, don't forget to roll over that as well to make it nice and smooth. I'm just going to press that down. I'm going to trim it off in a minute or two, but just for the moment, I'm just going to press that down. And then just go back, spend a bit of time and just pressing down a little bit on this edge where it's joined, just to make sure it's going to sit nicely down, but I don't need to do any much more in the way of trimming. And then very, very gently with my thumb, I'm just going around again, making sure we've got no air bubbles trapped as before. And now we need to decide whether or not we want to put any decoration around the top, and if so, what sort of decoration. So I'm just going to lay some shapes round on the top, and I'm just going to choose some cutters that will be the right size and shape to fit, and then cut out some shapes to fit round. So these are cutters I've used, and I'll put links if you wanted to buy something along these lines where I got them from down below. This one I've just done 4 in blue and 4 in the pink, and these ones I've done 8 of each of these colours, but I probably won't need all of these. And then I've also just used one of these small round cutters just to cut out some round circles, which I'm going to put in alternate places in a moment. So, getting back to our piece of paper that we did right at the very start, I can put him down there, and now I know that I can start placing these pieces right along the line. So if I start here and place him so he's in the middle, miss one, place one, miss the line, place one. And I'm trying to get these nice and evenly in the middle of the lip. And then the blue ones I'm going to do in between, but I'm going to go the other way up. And just having those lines makes it so easy to know that you're putting your pieces on nice and evenly placed around the lip of your flower pot. Once you've got them in position, you can pick it up and have a look and make sure, because I haven't pressed them in too firmly, I can always just rearrange slightly, make sure they're sort of straight as I want them. When I'm happy, I'll go and put the contrasting dot in the middle of each one. And then I can start working on these. Now I'm only going to be able to fit one in between each one, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to chop these in half. And now I can put 2 of them together, so that when I put them up, they'll go down in between both pieces, and then I'll just work my way around the lip of the pot as I go. So there we go. So that's, say, a pretty little top all by itself. But obviously we're going to put some details with the canes we made down the bottom, and we will also just do a little bit of detail in these things as well. So I'm going to put a little bit of indent in my leaves, and then just put some lines with a bit of texture. In these ones I'm going to use one of the ball tools, so that'll go right down to create a nice groove right in the middle. And then with a small one, we'll go and do some details around the outside. So I'll get those finished all the way around the top and bring you back when I've done that. So once that's all done and I'm happy with the top, and I've spent a bit of time making sure it's all nice and neat, then I'm just going to take my tissue blade and making sure I keep the blade well away from my hands, just gently go all the way around the inside of the pot, taking away the excess clay. That's now ready to bake again, so as before, bake as per the manufacturing instructions for the brand of clay you are using. So to make our leaf cane, we're going to do very similar to the flower cane to start with, or the petal cane, just to make a skinner blend across these three colours. So just as before, put them together, having cut them into halves, fold over, back through the pasta machine, through on setting number 3, or say I'll probably end up on setting number 2 on my machine, so quite a thick one, always collecting bottom to top until we come back with a nice smooth blend. So there we go, and again I'm going to chop this into 3 equal parts, lay them on top of each other, put them back through the deeper green end that way in, give ourselves a nice long strip on setting number 2, and then go down to your thinnest usable setting on the pasta machine to get yourself a really nice long strip. There we go, and this time rather than rolling I'm going to concertina, so I'm just going to move backwards and forwards, creating a concertina of the clay with the folds at either sides. And when you're doing the folds, you're trying to make sure you haven't got too much air trapped in them, because although we can get it out at a later stage, it is much easier if you don't actually trap it in at this stage. This is not a particularly neat process. I'm not that worried about that at this stage, because this is again it's going to be a natural thing, a leaf, so if it turns out that every single slice I cut is slightly different, well, as far as I'm concerned, that actually can be a bit of an advantage. So what I am going to do is I'm going to press down, because I want to make this quite short and squat and sort of round in shape. Now, as per normal with cane work, I'm not worried about what's on the end at all. It's what's going to be in the middle that's going to be the interesting bit. But I'm then going to cut or draw myself some guidelines. So we're going to draw 3 spurs coming out each side of a central vein, and that will be our markers for doing the leaf. Now, although we're doing relatively simple leaves at the moment, I'm going to add a little bit of interest and colour when we do these veins. So let's put him to one side. You should get some of your leftover of the pink and the blue, and I'm just going to push them back into balls of clay, because I don't want them that thin. Get some of the nice turnip colour, and then I'm just going to, with my fingers, push this into a height that's roughly the right. Push this into a height that's roughly the right height for my leaf, and then I'm just going to fold, leave the bottom end unattached, so you can see there, just gone over one side, and then I'm just going to pinch slightly at the top, and then we're going to create a nice thin piece, because what I'm looking at, this is going to be the inner veins. So I don't need anything too big, and it definitely needs to be thin enough that it can fit down the side. Now I could do this on the pasta machine, but I'm going to do it by hand today because I only want to do one side, because the other side we're going to do with blue. So what I'm going to do now, let's see how we're going. So I'm going to chop straight down where my first guideline was. I'm just working on this side. Let's start with the biggest one first. So take your piece, and where you need to make sure that this is 3 times as long, as we can get 3 pieces out of it. So I'm just going to pull it slightly longer, and I want the bottom bit to go where the stem of the leaf is. I'm going to chop off the excess this side, chop off the excess this side, and then we're going to put those 2 pieces of the leaf back together. So these are going to be quite chunky vein inserts, but it just adds an extra bit of colour which will match up with our petal tops. Same again, chop down the piece I've chopped, take him there, push him off there, and push our 2 bits back together. Now this last bit is quite a lot smaller here, so I'm going to just pull this longer, make it smaller that way, so that now when I chop through this side and put him down there, he'll chop off there. So if you notice, each time I've done this, I haven't gone right up to the edge, so that when all the pieces go back together, we've still got all the green around the outside. So I'm now going to repeat exactly the same again with the blue and do the other side of our leaf. Okay, then see whether you've got any of your colours left. So a little bit of pink there, and a little bit of the blue. So let's just cover them in another layer of the purple, just to give us something slightly more. And what I want now is something the right height, but to go up the inside. So I want it to go from the bottom probably up to about here on our leaf. And I'm going to go so far, and then I'll start rolling it, because I want the end to be quite nice and thin. So I've gone quite thin at this end, but chunkier at this end, and that should, with any luck, fit down, so that we can put both our sides together and still have the green meeting over the top. So there's our slightly funky leaf. We should hopefully still have enough of this to put it through the pasta machine that way in, and you can see that I've just folded it so it's roughly the right height to go around, and I'm going to put that on setting number 5, which should hopefully give us just enough. Yeah, that should be fine. So I'm putting him down there so I can use my tissue blade as a guide to cut myself a piece that's roughly the right height, and then I'm going to start at the bottom and just pull the clay all the way around the outer edge till it joins again at the bottom. Put all those bits together at one side, and now we're just going to change the shape of it. So with the middle stem going horizontal across my fingers, I'm going to press in to create that square shape, same as we did for the petal. And once we've got it going, we can then just start reducing in that square shape. It's a lovely soft clay to work with, this one, so it should reduce relatively quickly. And again, as before with the petal, I'm just going to get it to a certain stage. I'm going to, if that's the main part, these are the sides, so I'm just going to push in the sides to round off the sides. And then this time we can have a nice point, both top and bottom, for our leaves. And I'll probably make it smaller than this later on, but just to show you where we are for now, there's our little leaf cane. So we'll put those bits to one side as well, and we'll wait for the pot to come out of its next baking, and then we can start decorating it. So here's our pot, fresh out of the oven. Well, say fresh, it's actually cooled down enough though, and don't forget you need to leave the terracotta a little bit longer than perhaps you would normally for polymer clay, just to cool down in between bakings. But when it is cool enough, we can start putting our pattern on the bottom. Although I quite like it as it is, but we've got all that cane work, so let's add some detail onto the bottom here. I've reduced my petal cane down smaller than before. I did that just by pressing between my fingers and thumbs again, creating that sort of diamond shape, and he's gone down till he's about just over 1 centimetre. Easy to see there, about ½ an inch. And the same with the leaf cane, he's pretty much as I left him, so just about 1¼ inches, about 3 centimetres. I've also picked out, remember the extra shapes we'd cut out? I'm going to use those extra shapes of green as little fronds to put the leaves and the petals on. And the other thing I've done is I have made a whole load of these little inserts. So I took a piece of the distorted end of our petal cane, mixed it all together, came up with this nice sort of lilac-y colour, and I've just rolled a very long thin tube of it. It's much longer than this because I've taken quite a lot of cut-offs off. And again, it's probably about, very small, about 1/4 centimetre. So it's about 1/8 of an inch. And then all I've done is I've taken off little segments, probably about as wide as the roll is diameter-wise, roll them into a ball, roll them into a slight lozenge, just pinch the end slightly to make a diamond shape, and then just press it down. And the reason we're going to do that is we're going to create some depth, some volume to our petal shapes. So I've got the design in my mind, so I know what I need to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to cut off some slices of the leaf cane. I'm going to have my leaves in that sort of formation, so I need, already got one there, and I need another 3 of those, so I need another 9 slices off this cane. I'm just going to take him apart carefully, because what I want to do with that nice and centred, I'm going to look down and I'm going to place a leaf at one of those corner points and up against the bottom, going straight upwards. Press him in place, turn around, put another one on the 1/4, and then repeat for the last 2 quarters. Okay, having got those 4 in place, I'm just going to press them down, and now I can start putting my other ones on. But I'm not going to, I'll press at the bottom, but I'm not going to press at the top because I want to lift these off in just a second to add something underneath. And what I should find is that they either overlap or more or less meet. And again, it's another reason for not pressing down too much, because if one's overlapping too much, I can always readjust slightly at this stage, just in case I didn't put my pieces exactly on where they should have been. Okay, so there the bottom pieces on, but what I want to do now is to have some tendrils coming out so we can put our flowers on, and the tendrils I'm going to make from this plain lime green. And I'm going to roll it into a log, not too long, to make the ends pointed. So I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 centimetres is about perfect. So that's just about 3 inches. So chop down the middle, lift up one of our corners, and put him back. Because what I'm looking to do is to create somewhere for our flower heads to go, but somewhere that's not going to then impede on the next one. So repeat for the next one. Pull around and up. Doesn't have to be exact, so you can actually make one longer than the other if you want, just to sort of really change the dynamic. And when you're happy, push the leaves back down in place, and repeat that going round the bowl for the other pieces. So once you've got all those on and you're relatively happy, we can start putting together the petals. And again, cut off small slices. So I've cut off 6 slices of our petal, and that's going to be 3 on either side for our leaves. And then we're going to take one of these little inserts, put it inside, and then just fold the petals over, just to give it a bit of volume. I'm going to do that for all 6 pieces. And then once your petals are done, we're going to have 2 to the side, and 1 in the middle. One on that side, same again. And you can put them further down if you don't like where the green went. Two to the side, 1 in the middle. And then to finish them off, I've taken a little bit of my turnip coloured clay, used the smaller cutter that I mentioned in the tools at the beginning, and I've cut out 4 circles, and then each circle I'm just going to chop in half, and that half just sits at the base of your flower and just neatens it off where it comes out of the stem. So in total you're going to need 24 petals and 24 of these little inserts, so I will carry on doing that, add the rest of the petals and bring you back when I'm at that stage. So there's the pattern all complete on the bottom, and one last thing I'm just going to go over to make sure I haven't got any clay overlapping onto the bottom, and that's ready for its next baking. Again, exactly the same as per the manufacturer's instructions for the brand of clay you're using. And the final thing we're going to do when we come back is just put a little layer of clay on the bottom. So there we go, there's our pot through its final decorative baking. So what I want to do now is I do actually want to cover the base of this, because then I can use it or as a pen pot or some sort of table tidy, as well as a flower pot where the actual pot sits inside. So I have put the rest of my turnip through on as thick a setting as I could get to cover the base with the clay I've got left. So that was actually setting number 2, and you can see there where I just pressed it on lightly to check that it was the right size. So because I've done that, I can take off a little bit, turn that upside down, and it's probably best to do this on something like your baking sheet, because what I want to do is I want to put a little bit of clay inside that hole, just so that the bottom of the pot on the inside is even. So all I'm doing is I've pushed it in, and then with my fingers I'm going to swish, smooth it in until it's about as level as I can get with the bottom of the pot. So having done that, I can now turn it up the other way, come back on, and with a little bit of extra PVA glue, just go around the edge just to give it something else just to stick onto. Do a little bit on that extra piece of clay I've just added. And we can now just sit our last piece of clay on the top. I'm going to press down to make that indent, and then pull it down slightly around the sides, and then I should be able to just shear off around the edge, taking off the excess first again, and then we can come back and neaten it up as we go in close. I'm just going to, with a little wet wipe, just smooth over, round off any sharp edges and make sure I've wiped away any excess clay from the baked pieces of the leaves and the flowers. So that's now ready to go for its last baking. I will bake it that way up on the tile, because obviously if I baked it that way up and it created a good seal around there, you would get the air expanding on the inside, so bake it that way up. Again, the amount of time as per the manufacturer's baking instructions for the brand of clay you are using, and then I'll bring you back when it is finished and then we're all done. So there we go, there's our finished piece with the bottom in place as well, all ready to go. I'm not going to use this one as a proper terracotta pot. I might just use it to put a little indoor plant in, or possibly even just to hold pens or some form of knickknacks, key holder, something like that. Anything like that would be good. So that's that pattern. Let me show you a couple of others. Here's one where I've done similar pattern down below, slightly different leaf cane and different colours, and this is on a greeny background, and the top here it's slightly less busy, so it gives a nicer overall appearance. And this was very simple. I chose the colour that I wanted from the bottom and the top, which was the Royalty. Other than that, the colours are very similar to the ones I used in the sample we did, and these are just little squares pressed on with texture, more squares with a different texture. Then I used a ball tool to create a little divot in the middle, put a little dot of green clay in, and then a smaller ball tool just to press in to give it a bit of detail. And the texture on this background is simply a ball tool. I've been over the whole thing with a ball tool to create that texture. So that's a nice one. It's a bigger size than the one I did in the video, so obviously it takes a bit more clay. And then with this one I went bigger still. So this one really is quite a proper plant pot. This is one of the ones I will try outside with a plant in over the summer and try and keep it out over the winter, because I haven't done the bottom, so it's still got the hole in, so this can be used to plant a plant in. So very similar in a way, same leaf cane as I used in the middle one I just showed you, and then a slightly different petal cane. I've also done some bigger amounts of clay under these to make it really nice and raised, used a ball tool in the middle to hollow out a shape, and then input a middle cane with a little ball tool as well. And then this I did slightly more complex, exactly the same way to start with. Do your lines across so you get where all your lines should be, and then I measured the circumference between where the lines were and drew myself a triangle that fitted perfectly along the height of the lip, and so they all fitted in. And then I've just done a little border cane which goes in between each triangle, and then just alternated as they go around, and then repeated at the bottom, so it's got the nice bottom and top look. The other thing I did with this one, because I'd done a bit of a texture background on this, quite a dark colour in this one, I've just used a little bit of acrylic paint, very dry, and just pushed it into all the texture at the bottom, and then just wiped off the excess with a wet wipe. So there we go. 3 flower pots, different sizes, slightly different patterns, but all really good fun to do. I have had such fun doing this. This is a great one to do for you, for the kids, as a weekend project. It's just amazing, and because it's polymer clay, of course you can go as 3-dimensional and sculptural as you like, do as many different bakings or curings as you like, add bits as you go, and go completely mad with the colours and textures. As I said, I enjoyed that one. I hope you did as well. As normal, for those of you who subscribe, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And also for anyone who likes, and all the comments. Sometimes I do videos purely as a result of the comments that people have put on the feed. So do add things on there if there's something in particular you want me to do. I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.